episode 8 of A Man in a Microphone with your host, Cole Henry. This week, we've got a pretty Netflix-packed week because there's the main things I want to talk about this week are two Netflix series, one being far superior to the other, but we'll get into them when we get into them. And then on the games front, we're gonna kind of take a little blast into a few years past where we're going to talk about the Banner Saga, which I just finished over the Thanksgiving holiday. And I started Bioshcok 2's DLC, Minerva's Den, because Steve Gaynor of Fulbright fame worked on it, so I really want to check it out because his writing and storytelling and world building and pretty much everything is very, very, very up my alley. So that'll be a fun little discussion. But until we get to the video games, let's hop into the main television and film I really want to discuss this week. And we'll start with the worst, because I can talk about that faster and just kind of get it over with. So, about 2 Fridays ago, The Punisher came out on Netflix. And it's another piece of the Netflix sort of Marvel-verse. It's 13 episodes with Jon Bernthal portraying the Punisher, as he did in Season 2 of Daredevil. And he was the best part of Season 2 of Daredevil as a whole. And the show, Jon Bernthal is incredible. He is the perfect embodiment of Frank Castle. He feels straight out of the Punisher Max comic series, and it's really cool to see him portrayed on screen like that. And Jon Bernthal is a fantastic actor, and it's great to see him in a role that's meaty and sort of layered with depth and meaning. But the show as a whole sort of keeps on going. It does not lend itself well to the 13 episode format. It would have been better with a tight 6 to 8 episodes, maybe even 10 at that. But once you hit around episode 6 or 7, they just start stretching everything out and just sort of plods on, and each episode sort of follows the same formula with drama in the beginning, Frank getting mad, Frank set out his family, and then each episode sort of ends with a punctuation of extremely graphic violence, which is very Punisher, so I have no problem with that. But man, the show just gets old so fast. I didn't finish it. I watched, I think, 9 episodes of it. I'm probably not gonna go back to it. But what really stood out to me is how well directed it is and how it frames its violence. Because the same showrunner who worked on Hannibal, the great series that ended far too quickly, worked on this. So the sort of ruminations on violence and what it can do to a person is very much in frame. And the writing is not very good. Frank's writing is good. Pretty much every other supporting character, except for maybe Micro and Billy to an extent, is just cookie cutter garbage. It's not garbage, that's sort of a mean thing to say, but there's so much potential there, and it feels so wasted. But the episode that stands out for me is episode 3, which weirdly is one of the best episodes of television I've seen this year or in the past few years. I don't watch a lot of TV, to be honest, but it sort of really handles the Iraq and Afghanistan veteran situation and PTSD with sort of aplomb and respect and warmth that they don't get in the real world. And that is it was sort of eye-opening and really weird I did not expect that from a Punisher television show, but as the show progresses, it sort of throws that trauma and that grief to the wayside for it starts out so grounded, and the more it goes on, the more it veers more into the comic bookiness of it all, with betrayals and evil bad guys and an evil bad guy with a fake eye and all that stuff. So, and there's 2 or 3 very needless sex scenes. I have no problem with nudity and sex in film as long as it's warranted and adds to the characters and to the story, like Call Me By Your Name or Blue Is the Warmest Color, for example, or even Gaspar Noé's Irreversible to an extent. Say what you will about Gaspar Noé, but that film is all the more powerful due to its awful in-screen portrayal of brutal rape. But the Punisher's sex scenes feel very needless, and you feel like they just were thrown in because, Disney and Marvel sort of took the reins off this one, and the showrunners were like, if we can toss in a sex scene, let's toss them in. They just feel very out of the blue and don't further the plot or character progression in any sort of real meaningful manner. And they're kind of funny, in all honesty, and how they just don't fit at all. So, if you like the Punisher if you read Punisher comics, or if you like the Punisher as a character, which I don't know how much you can like the Punisher as a character. He's an anti-hero, and especially in today's political climate, he's someone who's harder and harder to root for, and the obsession with guns and an eye for an eye and a blunt means soon end. It gets old. It's tiresome, and the show has a very anti-gun stance, which is cool, but it's all very surface level. It never really delves into the meatier concepts at play, or it doesn't. It could. I mean, I don't know. It could take an even more harsh stance against what it's portraying, but it sort of appeases to the gun-loving crowd and the gun-hating crowd. So it is what it is, but there were certain parts that made me very uncomfortable as someone who does not see the need for guns or violence in the real world. But it's all over our media and it's all over our fiction, so we just gotta accept it. And that's the Punisher. Check it out if you really want to. It's a commitment. It's 13 episodes. They're roughly 40 to 50 minutes each, so you're kind of in for a long haul there. And I mean, maybe it pays off, maybe it doesn't. I haven't even finished it, so maybe I'm just talking on my ass, but it is what it is. But now, to transition into, the even better thing is Netflix's Godless. It is a 7-part miniseries, and for my money, it's the best thing Netflix has yet to fund and bring life into. Well, except for maybe I liked Cary Fukunga's Beast of No Nation a lot, but Godless is just it's almost everything I look for in fiction. It's first things first. It's a Western, so that's already a huge plus in my book. It's a miniseries, so has a start, has an end. There's no season 2. There's no cliffhangers, thank God. It's like a True Detective season 1, how that was a condensed narrative, and that's my favorite piece of television ever. And it's an 8-hour movie pretty much. Because in my mind, season 2 does not exist. So sorry, Colin Farrell, but Godless, my gosh, well, no pun intended, is an incredible piece of filmmaking. It's written and directed by Scott Frank, who he's been a screenwriter in Hollywood and in television since the mid-90s. And if you followed his work at all, he writes characters with a wit and a keenness to snappy dialogue that at once seems both surface level but has so much more meaning the more you delve into it and think about it. And it's produced by his friend Steven Soderbergh. And more or less everything Soderbergh touches is gold. So you kind of know what you're in for to an extent. But yeah, it's a 7-episode miniseries set in the old, rugged West in the godless territory. And it is a story of an outlaw who betrays his gang, goes on the run, and he ends up injured and cared for by this lady on a ranch outside of this town in New Mexico called La Belle. And what makes La Belle such an interesting town, and unlike anything we've really seen in Western fiction, is that it's a town run and full of just women, except for the sheriff and deputy and some of the storekeeps, because all of the men in the town died in a mining accident a few years prior to the story's starting. 88 men, or somewhere in the 80s, just gone, just vanished, dead, gone, at the blink of an eye, as characters tend to say a lot. And the big bad for the show is portrayed by Jeff Daniels, taking a major acting turn, just portraying a sadistic, horrifying villain who thinks he has a moral compass, but his moral compass is so off kilter that no one in their right mind could root for him. And that's what makes him such a compelling villain. Is as anyone who follows anything knows, the best villain is the villain who thinks he's doing right. So think Magneto and stuff like that, or even Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now to an extent. But yeah, Jeff Daniels, he runs a gang. His name's Frank Griffin, and he's a God-fearing, sort of lyrical man who speaks in weird riddles and quotes the Bible all the time and shoots people in the head for taking the Lord's name in vain. And he's sort of just a crazy, crazy man. He was raised by murderous Mormons or something. His backstory's weird. And Jeff Daniels just chews up the scenery as his character. He is incredible. He is just so, he's so good. He's so good in the show. Because at once he seems so calm and collected, but you can just see he has a look in his eyes where someone could say the wrong thing, look the wrong way, or even cough at the wrong time, and he could just snap and blow anyone away. And what makes him such an interesting character is he's as the show progresses, he has one arm, so he's a one-armed gunslinging outlaw, and the arm he lost was a shooting arm, and sort of a not so subtle metaphor for the devil's right hand, so to speak. But yeah, Jeff Daniels kills it. And then I'm just sort of gonna go through the cast here. And then as we have Jack O'Connell, who was in 71, which I don't know if you guys have seen, but it's a great movie about the whole IRA and the sort of Belfast situation in the late 70s. And that's a fascinating film. And he was also in the Angelina Jolie World War II movie. It wasn't very good, but I think it's like Unbreakable. No, that's a Shyamalan movie. I don't know. It wasn't a very good movie based on a book about World War II pilot. But yeah, so Jack O'Connell is really good. He plays the outlaw who betrayed Jeff Daniels, Frank Griffin's gang, and goes on the run. And Jack O'Connell, I knew he was something special when I saw him in 71, but in this show, he really, like a lot of the good actors of our generation, he says so much with his eyes. It's like sort of like, the Ryan Goslings and Tom Hardys of the world do when they're acting. He's quiet. Well, he's quiet. He's quiet because his character's quiet, but he's also quiet because in the first episode he gets clipped in the neck by a bullet. So he sort of talks in a low, raspy voice for a little while as he heals. But his character is so fascinating. And for what it's worth, my discussion of the show at this moment will be spoiler free because I really want everyone, the three people listen to the show, to watch it and knowing as little as possible. I would even say not to watch the trailer, just to hop into the show and just take it for what it is and let its narrative hooks and its world and its beauty just sort of pull you in and not let go of you. And then Jack O'Connell is really good. He's saved by Alice Fletcher, played by Michelle Dockery, as she's sort of a very badass woman. She takes no shit because, as you learn, she's seen some twisted stuff in her lifetime. And then we have, as the sheriff of La Belle, New Mexico, we have Scoop McNairy, who is I'd say definitely one of the most underrated actors of the past decade or so. He's awesome in pretty much everything he's in, whether the movie itself is good or not. He always stands out. And his character is fascinating because he's slowly going blind, which makes for some funny moments, some very intense moments, and some very sad moments, in that his complexion sort of very grounds his character and gives him a likability that he otherwise would not have due to some of his views on women and Native Americans that were all too common in that time period and sadly are still relevant today. And then we have Mayor Weber as Mary Agnes, the widow of the mayor of the town who died in the aforementioned mining accident. And she is fucking awesome because she, while being a chick in this era where prim and proper and, where corsets and huge dresses were the norm, she tosses on her dead husband's clothes, carries around a old Winchester rifle, and takes no shit from anyone. And she's hilarious. She sleeps with the local, with one of the town's prostitutes. It's a very fascinating character to see in this time period, and how others around her in the show sort of become accustomed to her ways and either accept or do not accept her. And then we have Thomas Brody Sangster as Whitey Wynn, one of the deputies in the town, to Scoot McNairy. He's a young guy. He was in Game of Thrones for a little while, and He's sort of the young deputy. He wants to be the sort of the quickest gun in the West, and his character at first seems very like kind of one dimensional and sort of very generic in a sense, but as the show grows, and if you know anything about Scott Frank's writing, you know he bucks tropish trends and genre convictions very, very quickly and very deftly. And he does so with Whitey's character, because he sort of grew to become one of my favorite characters, and I really cared for him. And I felt sort of like a sort of paternal nature over him, because he's portrayed with such sort of innocence and ignorance of youth, but also growing up in such a, you know, deadly land. It really is a fascinating dichotomy. And then yeah, that's about it for the main cast. There's some supporting characters here and there. There's some awesome Native American actors in the show that really play their part super well and sort of buck the trend of Native American characters in Western fiction that just spout prophetic ramblings and stuff like that. Because the characters, every character in the show, no matter how big or small a part, is given a three-dimensional treatment. No one feels wasted. No screen time is wasted. No dialogue is wasted. And I just want to talk a little bit about the direction and cinematography in this show, because it is impeccable. Scott Frank, his direction is just brimming with a love and affection and respect for Western genre fiction, both film, narrative, and painterly, because he understands what makes a Western good in almost every sense, and he understands pacing, and he understands sort of the allure and the mystique of the Wild West, because this show is equal parts Cormac McCarthy and Robert Altman. It's utterly fascinating. He's not afraid to let scenes play on and that seem important. He embraces the silence. He embraces the melancholy of the West. He embraces the unpredictability of it all. Because this show, its run times go, some episodes are 40 minutes, some are an hour and 20. You don't really know what you're getting yourself into. But, like, for example, there's a scene where a character is breaking in a horse, and that scene itself is void of dialogue. It's just 4 to 7 minutes of a camera following a character as he breaks in a horse. It just feels so natural and raw and, well, naturalistic in the sense of it being a Western, and it really just puts you in this time period and makes you feel like you're there. You feel like you can just, you know, smell the sweat and the stink off the horse and the guy, and you want to brush the dirt off your shoulders after it's all over. And I think that goes for the show's opening minutes are truly captivating. If you watch the first 10 minutes of the show and are not into it, I do not know what you enjoy or seek in your fiction, because this opening has it all. It's more or less devoid of dialogue, devoid of context. It is just, the camera just follows what looks like a man of the law through this town that has been riddled by fire and gunfire, and there's a overturned train, and then it's the rider's just riding through smoke. He's riding through smoke. You don't really have a good line of sight as to what's going on. It's just utter confusion, really. And then you hear this woman singing a church hymn as she's holding a dead man, and you see all these bodies strewn about around the broken train, and you realize that it is a man of the law and his deputies who have ridden into this sort of brand new ghost town, and the men of the law's faces say it all. It's just, they've never sensed horror in this sense, and the camera sort of goes wide and high angle over this lawman as he walks through this carnage, and then he drops to his knees as he looks up, and you see tears in his eyes, and the camera pulls back, and there's just a child hanging from a pole, and then it just cuts to credits, and you sort of know what you're in for, because it's called Godless. It's a very bleak sort of melancholy show that is more or less about loss and coming to terms with who you are, what you were born into, and what you chose to be. And while there are moments of humor and levity, it is definitely not a show for the faint of heart, in both moral and thematic standpoints and in a visual standpoint, because the show it is not a fast gunslinging western full of epic shootouts and crazy chases. It is slow, and when there is violence, it's quick, it's blunt, it is downright disgusting. You hate to see it every time it happens, and the sense of tension and foreboding and paranoia that just sort of reeks through every scene is really disconcerting, and it gets to a point where it's almost unbearable in the last episode or so. And when there is violence, you do not want to see it. And Scott Frank, he keeps most of the violence in camera for definitely adding to some shock value, which all the violence is given meaning and life through its context, but it is also meant to shock the viewer in a very, very, very intense manner. And some of the most despicable and gruesome acts of mankind are shown, or not shown rather, through sort of off-camera moments and implications of violence and implications of what a man will do to another man just to seek revenge and to prove his domination over both male and female. And it is just a truly haunting show, and its ending is poetic and beautiful. The whole show has a very poetic nature, and the cinematography and framing really just makes the Old West, despite what I just said, look so elegant and beautiful and fully realized. It's like you're watching a Charles Marion Russell painting just come to life for 8 hours more or less. I cannot recommend this show enough. I truly cannot, and I would love to do a spoiler cast about it in the near future, but I want to give time for it to sink in and for people to watch it, and I really want to write something about it as well. So I'm gonna rewatch it and take notes and do some research about this and that. But this show deserves my utmost attention, and it deserves my utmost critique in a scholarly sense, because I have a lot of words I want to put to my keyboard about this one. It is a really special show, and it's on Netflix, so anyone can watch it, and I truly, truly hope and recommend it oh so highly. So I hope you check it out. And now, with as little transition as always, let's hop into the games. So the Banner Saga, I just finished it. It is a Oregon Trail like game mixed with a tactics RPG, and I don't know what more you could really want. And it is all within the context of this awesome Nordic fantasy universe that is just bleak. It's on the fringes. The world is ending. The sun has stopped working to an extent, and you're on the sort of the fringes of the apocalypse as your caravan fights off these things called the Dredge, these black stone beasts. They look like they almost look. I don't want to say orcish. Almost. If you played any of the Elder Scrolls games, they have a very Dwemer resemblance in their armor and stuff, but they don't have the gold bronzing look that's very dark and horrific. Okay, yeah, they're almost more White Walker, even if the White Walkers wore deep black armor and only their blue eyes shone through their armor and stuff. But the game is really, really, really good. I bought the second one as well, and I'll start it once I have more free time, because life is moving a bajillion miles a minute right now, but I cannot recommend this game enough. It was designed by Alex Thomas, and the art, it is one of the most, if not the most beautiful games I've ever played, in both its storytelling, writing, and its just visual presentation, because it looks like a D&D rulebook come to life. And I'm talking newer D&D rulebooks where the art is actually of merit, because it is one beautiful game, and it's developed by Stoic Studios. It was built off of crowdfunding via Kickstarter for the first two games and the third one that is in development now. For the sake of putting it out there, I did not back the first two games, but I have become a late backer for the third game. So take what I say with a grain of salt if you feel like you need to. But it is such a good game, and the lore and the world that it builds with the Varl and the humans. The Varl are this race of giants. They have horns, and they have an sort of stable but unstable relationship with the humans through trade and commerce, and they both share an equal enemy in the Dredge. But as the game goes on, you meet these characters called Weavers, who are sort of the wizards of this world, There's a giant mountain splitting serpent going around. Uh, all of your choices matter. Nothing goes without consequence, which is something that is so, I don't want to say so rare in games, but is does not happen as often as I would like, because literally everything you do in this game has a consequence. Whether you're spending your money on supplies rather than armor, or on new armor rather than supplies, or let's say you're with your caravan and you're playing as a human, because the game is split. It's 7 chapters, and each chapter more or less is split up between commanding a human caravan and a Varl giant caravan. And when you're commanding the Varl, you're sort of seeing the world through the lens of this guy named Hakon, who sort of unwantedly has become not the king, more or less the king of the Varl, because there's still a Varl king, but he's in the city and does not want to leave. And then when you play as the humans, you play as I forgot the guy's name, but it is this man with his daughter, and their story is I don't want to say far more compelling than the Varl one, but there's definitely more at stake, because you have far less supplies, you have far less money, people die faster, you're not as good in combat, and it is just so good. It's rare when I play a game and I realize while I'm playing it that I just stumbled upon one of my favorite games of all time. And I got through most of it with a smile on my face, except by the time I finished it, I was wiping away tears from my eyes, in all honesty. And, well, back to the human you play as. His name is Rook, and his daughter is Alette, and that's who you sort of command on your journey. But it is just such a heartfelt experience. The world that is crafted through all of it is just poetic and disparate and dreadful and gorgeous, and the art design is like with cinema you say every frame is a painting. Every frame of this is literally a painting. You could pause it at any moment, screenshot it, and put it on your wall. You could frame it. It is just jaw-droppingly gorgeous. It is stupendous, and I haven't even gotten to the gameplay yet, which is it plays like a tactics game. It's awesome, and the combat is interesting. You can choose to attack armor or health, and with both of them having their pros and cons, each character has their own weaknesses and strengths, and it's pretty much everything you come to expect in a tactics game. But it's in this awesome world, and I can't even begin. Everything has a lore now. Everything has tie-in books. This game has one tie-in book. I want them to go full Warhammer with this and just shit out tie-in books every week, because I could read and immerse myself in this world for forever, and I truly believe that. And I cannot wait to start the second one, because you can transfer your save from the first game to the second game, because by the end your consequences do matter. It is life or death. It really is, and it is awesome. And the world is in sort of this perpetual twilight. It's all Viking inspired, and man, it is so cool. It really is. It was on sale on Xbox Live, so I picked up 1 and 2, but it is worth paying full price for. It is worth tweeting at Stoic Games or tweeting at the Spanish Saga and just giving them your thanks if you've played this, because game developers, while they get thanked a lot, they also deal with a lot of bullshit. So put some good out there in the world via typing your little fingers on your keyboard, and thank them for it if you've played it. And if you haven't, give it a shot, because everyone can find something to enjoy in this. It is incredible. It really is. And then I also played over the holiday break. I started Bioshcok 2's Minerva's Den. I played like an hour of it, so I don't have much to say about it, but I just want to kind of say that I'm playing that, and I'll definitely have more to say about it once I get farther along, because it is a Steve Gaynor and Co. joint, and that means it will have some dope story shit going on, some cool gameplay concepts that I definitely want to tackle. And while hundreds of op-eds have already been written about it, and people on other podcasts who speak more eloquently than me with more knowledge have already said what they'll say about it, I still want to add my 2 cents to the 6-7-year-old piece of video game fiction. But yeah, it's cool so far. It's more as of right now, it's more Bioshcok 2, in all honesty. Nothing sort of crazy or different has happened that sets it apart from core Bioshock 2. But knowing what Steve Gaynor is capable of, I have the utmost faith that it will blow me away once it chooses to do so. And that's about it for this week, I think. So watch The Punisher if you feel like it. Really, no push to. By all means, watch Godless if you're a fan of it. Anything Western fiction or Cormac McCarthy or S. Craig Zahler. It is A1. It is good. Play the Banner Saga, for God's sake, if you like fantasy or tactics or the Oregon Trail, because it's fucking stupendous. And you've probably already played Bioshock 2's Minerva's Den, so I feel like I'm probably beating a dead horse on that front. But if you haven't, it's remastered on Xbox One and PS4 and PC, so give it a shot. And as always, we start in the show with a song, and this week the song is Bay Caught Me Vapin'. Great name, I know, by Fantasy Guys. They're a local Atlanta group, and they sort of sound like a mix between Homeshake and Whitney. All of their songs have funny titles, like Bay Caught Me Vapin', and they are awesome live. They sound just like they do in the studio live, and you can. All this shit is on Bandcamp if you want to support them there and give them money through no third party, which I recommend doing. They're always playing in the greater Atlanta area, so if you just go to their Facebook page and you'll probably find a date where you can go check them out, and they're really worth seeing live. They're pretty dope, and they're on Spotify as well, so everyone on Spotify these days, so that's probably the best place to find them. But while you're at it, toss them a few dollars on Bandcamp, because their music really is dope. So as always, be good, do better, and just have a great week. Hope your Thanksgiving was full of good food, decent family interactions, hopefully with not too much religion and or Trump, and hopefully you had a good Black Friday, didn't get trampled or stabbed or anything. So take care, see you guys next week.